because one of the things we want to do with Alliance University is really encourage a lot of the diversity, of topics that I think need to be discussed. My tagline for Alliance University is learn from experts, learn from each other. The first part of what we're going to do today, hopefully you're going to learn from an expert, and then at the end, I'll open it up to questions, and then hopefully we can learn from each other. My name is Jim Mosquera. I'm a VP of Corporate Development at Alliance Corp, and I'm also the founder of Alliance University. One of the things that I've looked at over the course of time, and I'm sure you guys have too, I've looked at a ton of LinkedIn profiles. People ask me to connect with them, or I'm just searching for someone, and inevitably I'll see something like, hey, I want to join a nonprofit board, or I've been asked to do something with a nonprofit. And the thing that strikes me with that is that represents really the noblest causes of people, right? To form that nonprofit, to have that drive to help their fellow man. And what struck me about that is that those things are very important for society as a whole. That altruism will make our communities better and hopefully our economies better. But as I thought about it, like, well, what does it actually take to run a nonprofit? I mean, it's nice to have those those aspirations, but how do you actually make that happen? And so today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have our expert, Rachel, talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to have Rachel introduce herself, and she can kind of guide us through this process about running a nonprofit. So welcome, Rachel.
Well, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. Hi, Jim.
Hello.
Yeah, I've been in nonprofits for over 25 years. I won't go as far as 30, but I was over 25 years in nonprofits. And my background dates back to Kansas City. I was fortunate enough to be a development director for a social service agency. And soon after that, the agency lost their leader. She was a religious, and I was asked to take it on and to change the agency from a social service agency into a community center. And in doing that, it was a tremendous opportunity. The mission of the center was foremost in everyone's mind, and giving out social services to people in need is paramount in those areas at risk, that people are at risk. In growing the agency into a community center, how do you do that with just the mission? So I learned over time that you not only needed to understand the mission, you needed to understand some business acumen as well. So I am happy to say that from there to St. Louis, I've had great opportunities running foundations, health foundations, and social service agencies over the years, and just had a great experience in doing that. Well,
and so somebody had approached me, this was a couple of years ago, like, hey, Jim, I got this nonprofit idea, it's really cool. And, and when I met Rachel, I told her, I don't know the first thing about nonprofits, but what would you say, Rachel, is the #1 success factor for a nonprofit?
The #1 success factor is understanding the mission and proliferating the mission.
And tell us, like, when you talk about understanding the mission, what is the essence of that mission?
The mission drives the organization, just like Rick Hammer said earlier today when he was introducing himself, that he knows why he started that nonprofit. It was a need that he had a passion in, and that's what drives the business of the nonprofit. So if you don't believe in what you're doing, you can't survive it.
So you really have that strong faith and belief.
Absolutely do.
When I was preparing for this exchange that we're having right now, I was doing some research and I ran across this Wall Street Journal article, and it was really interesting. I want you to share with our audience about that, because it was talking about a nun, and then you think about, well, why would a nun be appearing in a Wall Street Journal article? And if you're following the NCAA basketball tournament right now, there's a nun that's actually quite famous right now, Sister Jean, who's cheerleading Loyola Chicago. So you think, oh, okay, well, this has nothing to do with basketball, right? So this has to do with nonprofits. So share that story with the audience about the Wall Street Journal. And
yeah. That article came out quite a few years ago, and it was highlighting a religious community who has made millions and millions of dollars over the years and had a huge portfolio in Wall Street. And it was kind of dubbed as the Daughters of Currency versus the Daughters of Charity. And the reason for that was, they were endowed with revenue that beyond belief. And one of the sisters that was heading up the organization kind of just said to the interviewer, you know, no margin, no mission. And that phrase stuck with nonprofits over the years. And many religious organizations, as well as for-profit and nonprofits, have realized that if you don't proliferate the revenue, your mission will not survive over time. You know.
So it's a real simple formula.
Right.
No margin,
Right.
no mission.
Right.
Interesting. Well, you know, one of the things that, you know, as a business, as a former business owner, you know, and obviously currently participating in this business I'm in right now, you know, margin and revenue, of course, are really, really important, but there's another side to the equation as well. You know, you've got revenue, or excuse me, you've got expenses you got to worry about, and then the whole operational aspect of running a nonprofit. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I think nonprofits on the whole struggle with that acumen, that business acumen side, because they're so passionate about the mission and they understand, you know, the reason they're there, and they understand the reason that's proliferating the people that come to them for help. But when it comes to actually understanding the financials, understanding the back office support, many of them struggle. And that's part of why I got involved with Community Value Alliance. It is one of the answers that are out there right now in the St. Louis community. There aren't many organizations that I know of that can give nonprofits that back office support in a professional manner. And I think nonprofits would really benefit from understanding more about the business acumen.
So really, I mean, when you think about running a nonprofit, and if it is really like running a business, you've got the revenue side or the margin, you've got the expense side, you've got the operational side. I mean, would you say that if there's any faltering, I guess, in one of those three pillars, it's going to be very difficult for that nonprofit to succeed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And not to sound morbid, but have you seen nonprofit failures in your time?
Well, I don't know if I've actually truly watched a nonprofit fail.
Yeah.
But I will say I struggled early in my tenure. When I go back to the Kansas City opportunity, that agency was a social service agency initially. So, you know, the ability to find and grow it for computerization, you know, to find out how to do the financials according to GAAP standards, I didn't know those things on my own. I had to learn them, or I had to find someone who can help me do that.
Yeah.
And in that instance, over a couple of years of growing that agency, I realized that if we didn't find a CVA type of agency to help us, we were going to have to find something else. And for us, the solution was the health system.
Okay.
We went to the Daughters of Charity and the health system that they were involved in, which is now Ascension Health, that brought that infrastructure to it. So what CVA is trying to do here in St. Louis is bring infrastructure to organizations that need it.
So what would you say is CVA's mission?
CVA's mission is to proliferate nonprofit industry, to allow the nonprofits in St. Louis to do that and survive their mission into perpetuity. And how do you do that? What we talked about. You first have to have the mission, you have to believe in it, and then you have to understand how to run a business.
Yeah. Oh, important. Well, of the audience, you know, how would they be a good way to learn more about CVA and potentially get in contact with you?
Yeah, well, we have a website,
Yeah.
cvastl.org. I would invite you to get on that website. We have opportunities. Phone number 314-780-2902. Just give me a call. And we're going to be out there, as you know, Jim. We're looking at doing presentations at chambers and in St. Louis. We're going to be out there.
Cool. Well, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for your insights. I want to open it up now to the audience for questions. You know, if anybody has any questions for Rachel or for me, we'll be happy to answer them.
Jim, I've got one. In getting our taxes prepared this year, my wife is a CPA, and I try to stay away from it. But she told me that I guess, married, you get like a $28,000 deductible. I think that's just, standard, which I think is going to discourage people from contributing to nonprofits, because if the deductible is that high, you don't need to contribute to a nonprofit to get a write-off.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Bruce, because I don't do my mom's taxes, but I have somebody do them. Somebody I met through networking, and she's on a fixed income, and I hadn't done anything with respect to her charitable contributions this year, because as you aptly noted, a couple of years ago, there was a change in the tax law that raised the standard deduction up to a certain amount. And again, just from my own personal perspective, like taxes that I do for myself, yeah, it sort of eliminated that incentive, if you will, because once the standard deduction kicked in, for a married couple, it was pretty high. So you had to have a lot of, itemized deductions to be able to compensate for that. But what I found out this year as I was doing my taxes, that irrespective of, that standard deduction that you have, the IRS this year is allowing, I believe, up to $300 in addition, to allow for, any deductions that you might have. So you don't have to itemize those. You say, okay, I contributed to charitable cause. So at a minimum, I would say, Bruce, that you've got about a $300 cushion there that you can play with that you probably didn't have in the past. So yes, there's still an avenue there for that. Maybe not as generous as it was in the past.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions for myself or Rachel?
I've got like I'm on a mission. There's no doubt in my mind. Maybe I'm on a mission by myself, but how do you do the fundraising? That's the part that I'm really not good at.
Wow. I know Valerie is a really good fundraiser. She might want to say something right now.
Valerie, the floor is yours. Make sure you unmute before you.
Yes. Well, do you have a board?
Yes.
You do. I would activate your board, ask them who they know, and then get a short list of people that they would be willing to talk about your efforts and your mission and your project, and go visit them and tell them and ask. The biggest thing is ask. If you don't ask, you won't get.
Okay, I like that.
And Valerie and I know each other so long that we sing the same song, so to speak. And she's absolutely right. You have to have a strong board, and you have to start your fundraising with people that are friendly to your cause. And if they can be the ambassadors, they go out and they help you tell that story. And over time, that will come back and plant seeds. And if you plant 100 seeds, over time, they're gonna sprout. And when they start sprouting, there's gonna be a lot of people that will be giving to you. But it starts with your board. It really does.
Yeah.
Then those people that are part of your organization that have gone through some of your, classes or read your materials, benefited. Go to those kids' parents that were in your 18 to 28 year. Go to their parents, and their parents are going to be, thank you so much. Yes, we want to help others have the same experience. And even those 18 to 28-year-olds, clearly they're making money. They might not give you the biggest gift, but that's a good place to start as well. I'm sure your sons would be happy to invest and be some of your first donors.
One of my sons did.
There you go. Woo!
Yeah.
It as a family, people closest to your family is where you start, and then you reach out from there, and they proliferate, and it just keeps going.
Yeah. And Valerie, by the way, thank you for that answer. You're espousing what I want to see with Alliance University, which is, again, we're learning from each other, not just the experts. So thank you for your answer.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you, Valerie.
Sure.
Rick, do you have any questions for us, or maybe even for Bruce or Valerie?
No, I'm I guess in the same boat as everybody for fundraising. It's kind of changed and morphed over the past year. We used to have a lot of events that we would raise money at: concerts, trivia nights, mouse races, things of that nature. And with the inability to have large groups gather, that kind of went by the wayside. I'm agreeing with what, you start with your board, and you get your board to donate, each one of them. If you can't get every single board member donated and everybody's on for the cause, then how can you ask anybody else for money? So I agree with that. You start with your board. I think it sounds good in theory that you're going to get a couple names from each board member, but not everybody's going to feel comfortable doing that. So, I always look for different avenues or paths to raise money. But we start with our board, and that's where a lot of our money comes from, and then it goes to events. But right now, during this pandemic, it has been difficult to raise funds. We went from raising 150 to 200,000 a year down to 80. So a big change for sure.
Yeah, and if I can offer any encouragement, Rick, we have actually had 2 in-person, chamber meetings where, we had 50 people in a room with, just regular luncheon presenters. And I understand the St. Louis baseball Cardinals are going to have 30% capacity for their home opener, which is, maybe, a couple of weeks away. So I'm hopeful that certainly as we get more into the summer, you'll be able to have more of these events that, heretofore weren't available to you.
Yeah, hopefully that'll be the case. I get fingers crossed on that for sure.
Yeah. Jim, I have another question. How big are your boards?
Oh, they vary. They vary. I think here at CVA, we started off with 6, and we want to go to at least 13 this first year.
Yeah.
I believe personally to have a moderate sized board, because you want to be able to get things done.
What's a moderate sized board?
I would say nothing over 15.
Okay.
Yeah, because after that, you get a lot of people in a room, a lot of voices, and it's hard to conduct the business.
And since we're talking about boards, and Bruce, since you prompted that question, should the board hierarchy, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, are there any other titles that are essential to having the board other than maybe those 4?
Well, I think committees. You need committee chairs.
Okay.
Those are the worker bees, and you want to be able to have finance committee, and in a lot of instances, you want a program committee, because many of nonprofits have programs. And if you can get heads of those committees involved and meeting on a regular basis, and then referring back to the board and reporting to the board, then you've got a structured ability to keep going.
Good. Does that answer your question, Bruce?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, how many are on yours, Valerie?
We have about 12.
Well,
We're at 10 ourselves.
10?
Yes.
And
How many
we
do you have on
have
your board,
committees.
Bruce?
There's probably 7 or 8, but it's all my family and just one external. So I think I need to rethink my board.
Well, and I think, Bruce, I'll dovetail off of what Rachel said about committees. If you form some committees that will help you roll out your program, then you can see who's really engaged, who really kind of steps up, and those are the nice funnel to move into board positions.
I like it.
I think a real important thing, especially if you're just starting off, is to have a strategic plan done. And you definitely want to go outside your family members. I mean, that's how I initially started, was friends and family, but I've got people still that are my friends for 50 years, and they're very involved. But a strategic plan to lay out where you're at in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years is definitely something that you want to have, and it's an evolving document. But
Yeah.
I think it'll give you some goals and something that you can work towards.
Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, listen, everyone, thank you for joining today. I know we've gone probably a little bit past the time that you were anticipating, but I think the Q&A afterwards was real productive. Again, we're learning from each other, as we progress through this journey. I encourage you to visit Alliance University to see some of the other offerings that we have. We have seminars, which are normally going to be paid content. We have these executive briefings, which will be a little bit shorter. And then we're having a series of roundtables. Some of them will actually be peer groups. We're actually considering creating a roundtable peer group just consisting of nonprofit professionals. And we're going to do that for different industries, like human resources officers, chief information officers, and then also people in the nonprofit community, where you only have a roundtable of that profession only. So again, check back on the site frequently, and we'll get some more of those things developed. So thank you again for joining us today, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.